Every American knows the image. A tire cup, a paper cup of coffee, and a donut at 3 a.m. It looks like a joke, and for decades, movies and cartoons have treated it like one. The lazy cup, the bored cup, the overweight cup, the detective leaning over a box of glazed donuts in the station break room. But the strange truth is that this stereotype did not start because cops had some mysterious weakness for sugar. It started because donut shops were once among the only places in the city still awake, when police officers were hungry. Before 24-hour fast food, before gas station coffee bars, before energy drinks and drive-through windows, a cop working overnight had a very simple problem. Most of the city was closed. So this story is not really about donuts. It is about night shifts, patrol cars, coffee, diners, convenience food, and how one cheap snack became the symbol of American police work. Chapter 1: The 3 a.m. Problem. To understand the cup and donut stereotype, you have to start with the worst time to be hungry, around 3 in the morning. That hour, the city changes personality. The office workers are home. The lunch counters are closed. Most restaurants have locked their doors. The places still open are not always places where a uniformed officer can quietly sit down and eat. A bar might be open, but a bar is a terrible place for a cop to take a meal break. It creates the wrong mood, the wrong image, and sometimes the wrong kind of trouble. A proper restaurant might be miles away. Going back to the station takes time. A homemade sandwich might be sitting in the car, but after 6 hours in a paper bag, it is no longer exactly dinner. That left cops searching for businesses that match the rhythm of the job. They needed something open late or very early. They needed food that could be eaten fast. They needed coffee. They needed a place with light, a bathroom, a phone, and maybe a counter where they could write a few notes before the next call came. That is the part the joke usually skips. Police work is not built around normal meal times. A cop does not always get lunch at noon or dinner at 6. A radio call can interrupt anything. A slow night can suddenly become a dangerous night. Even when nothing dramatic happens, fatigue becomes its own problem. So the real question is not why cops ate donuts. The better question is, what kind of food still makes sense when your meal break can disappear at any second? That is where the donut shop enters the story. Chapter 2: Why donuts work. Donut shops were not originally staying open for cops. They were staying open because donuts are morning food, and morning food has to be prepared before morning arrives. Long before the front office worker pick up a dozen donuts for the break room, someone had to make them. Bakers came in early. Dough had to be mixed. Donuts had to be cut, fried, glazed, cooled, and boxed before the breakfast rush. That meant the lights were on, while most of the neighborhood was still asleep. For a cop on patrol, this was perfect timing. A donut shop could be open before dawn, when regular restaurants were closed and breakfast places had not fully started their day. A patrol car could pull up. An officer could step inside, buy a donut and coffee, and be back out quickly. The donut itself also fit the job. It was cheap. It was portable. It did not need a plate. It did not require a fork. It could sit in a paper bag without becoming impossible to eat. If the radio suddenly called the officer away, the donut could be left on the seat and finished later. A sandwich could do some of that, but not always as easily. A hot meal was better, but it required time. A donut was not a full dinner, but at 3 in the morning, full dinner was often not the standard. The standard was something available, quick, and predictable. There was also the matter of money. Police officers were not wealthy. A donut and a cup of coffee were affordable. That mattered in a job where a quick food stop might happen several times a week. The food had to be cheap enough to become routine. This is how a habit forms. It does not need a dramatic origin story. It needs convenience repeated over and over until people stop noticing it. A cop stopped at the same donut shop on the overnight shift. The baker recognizes him. The counter worker knows his coffee order. The cruiser outside becomes part of the street scene. After enough nights, the image starts to feel natural. Later, comedy would make it look ridiculous. At the beginning, it was mostly practical. Chapter 3, Coffee was the real feel. The donut became the famous part, but coffee was probably more important. A donut gives you sugar and calories. Coffee gives you permission to keep going when your body wants to shut down. For night shift cops, coffee was not a cute lifestyle accessory. It was fuel. The patrol car might be warm, the streets might be quiet, and the human body is not designed to feel sharp at 4 in the morning. Coffee helped officers stay alert during the slow hours when fatigue could become dangerous. Picture the inside of a patrol car during a long night shift. There is a radio, paperwork, a flashlight, maybe a clipboard, maybe a half-finished report, and a paper cup of coffee sitting in the cup holder. The food nearby is probably not glamorous. It might be a wrapped sandwich, a bag of chips, a donut, or fries that went cold 20 minutes ago. That is not a carefully planned meal. That is survival inside a schedule that does not care about appetite. Coffee also gave cops a reason to stop somewhere without making it feel like a real break. Buying dinner sounds like leaving the job for a while. Getting coffee sounds like staying ready. That small difference matters in a profession where being seen as available is part of the role. Donut shops understood this. Diners understood it too. If you serve hot coffee, you could serve the night shift. And coffee created a social routine. The officer at the counter was not always there for a pastry. Sometimes he was there for caffeine, a quick conversation, and a few minutes in a place where the city felt less empty. That is one reason the coffee and donut image became so powerful. It captured something real about overnight work. The sugar was visible, but the caffeine was doing the quiet labor. Chapter 4, Why Donut Shops Wanted Cops. There is another side of the story that makes the stereotype more interesting. Donut shops were useful to cops, but cops were also useful to donut shops. Think about the kind of business that opens before dawn. There may be only 1 or 2 workers inside. The cash register is active. The street outside is quiet. The front windows are bright, which makes the shop visible, but visibility does not always equal safety. A police cruiser parked out front could make a difference. For the employees, it was a sign that someone was nearby. For customers, it could make the shop feel safer. For anyone thinking about causing trouble, the cruiser was a warning without anyone needing to say a word. That meant the relationship had a practical logic for both sides. The officer got food, coffee, a restroom, and a place to pause. The shop got a regular police presence during its most vulnerable hours. Nobody needed a formal agreement. The arrangement grew from the shared needs of people working strange hours. This is why the donut shop became more than a snack stop. In some neighborhoods, it became an informal checkpoint. An officer could hear what had happened during the night. A worker might mention a suspicious customer, a broken window down the block, a fight outside a bar, or a regular who had not shown up. A few minutes at the counter could become a small exchange of neighborhood information. The stereotype reduces all of that to a fat joke. The reality was more practical and more social. The donut shop was part bakery, part coffee counter, part early morning shelter, and part neighborhood lookout point. For cops, that combination was hard to beat. Chapter 2, The Diner Era. Donut shops solved the quick start problem, but they did not solve every food problem. Sometimes cops needed something closer to a meal, and that is where the American diner became important. The diner belongs to a different part of the same night shift world. A good 24-hour diner did not care whether you were hungry at midnight, 4 in the morning, or after sunrise. You could order eggs at an hour when most people were asleep. You could get a burger after a late shift. You could drink coffee until the refill stopped feeling like a drink and started feeling like a ritual. That made diners natural gathering places for people whose schedules did not match normal life. Cops were only one group. Nurses came in after hospital shifts. Truck drivers stopped between long drives. Taxi drivers took a break from the road. Factory workers ate before or after overnight shifts. Security guards, paramedics, firefighters, and late-night students could all end up in the same room. The diner was not fancy. That was part of the appeal. It had booths, counters, pie cases, laminated menus, and food that made sense at almost any hour. It was public enough for a uniformed officer to remain visible, but relaxed enough to feel like a break. A cop sitting in a diner booth could eat without completely disappearing from the street. The cruiser might still be outside. The radio might still be closed. The officer could watch the door, talk to the waitress, and be ready to leave if needed. This is where the police food story gets bigger than donuts. The donut shop was one piece of a larger system that fed the American night shift. The diner was another. Together, they show how the country created food spaces for people who worked while everyone else slept. And the food itself reflected that purpose. Egg, toast, burgers, pie, coffee, pancakes, hash browns, and meatloaf were not dedicated foods. They were filling, familiar, and easy to serve at all hours. A diner could give a cop something a donut could not, a place to sit down and feel human for 20 minutes. Of course, 20 minutes was never guaranteed. That uncertainty shaped the whole police style. Food had to fit around the job because the job was not going to fit around food. Chapter 6 From Donuts to Dry Fries. The old image is donut, coffee, and diner booth. The modern version looks different. Today, a cop on patrol might still stop at a donut shop, but the food landscape has changed. The night no longer belongs to bakeries and diners alone. Fast food chains, gas stations, convenience stores, and drive-thrus have taken over much of the space that donut shops once occupied. The change follows the car. As American policing became more centered on patrol cars, police meals became more mobile. The patrol car turned into a moving workspace. It carried radios, computers, gear, reports, water bottles, wrappers, and whatever food could be eaten between calls. Fast food was built for that world. A drive-through burger could be bought without leaving the car for long. Fries could be eaten from a paper bag. Chicken nuggets, tacos, breakfast sandwiches, and take-out coffee all fit the logic of mobile work. They were not always healthy, but they were fast, predictable, and everywhere. Convenience stores push the pattern even further. A modern officer can walk into a gas station at 3 in the morning and find coffee, energy drinks, bottled water, packaged sandwiches, roller grill hot dogs, microwave burritos, chips, candy bars, protein snacks, and the kind of breakfast item that may technically contain egg. This is not the same world that created the donut stereotype. In the older version, the officer needed a place that happened to be open. In the modern version, the city is full of places designed to sell food to people who are moving, driving, working, or too tired to cook. That shift matters. The donut shop offered a pause. The diner offered a seat. The drive-thru and convenience store offer speed. They fit a version of work where the meal is squeezed into the gaps. So if someone wanted to update the stereotype today, the prop might not be a donut. It might be gas station, coffee, energy drink, a wrapped breakfast sandwich, or a burger eaten in a parked cruiser while the radio stays on. But the deeper story has not changed much. Cops still eat according to the demands of the shift. The food follows the work. Chapter 7 How Pop Culture Made It a Joke. So when did a practical habit become a national joke? That happened when pop culture discovered how useful the image was. A cop with a donut is instantly readable. A writer does not need to explain the setting. A box of donuts in a police station tells the audience that this is a familiar police wall. A detective with coffee and a glazed donut feels tired before he says he is tired. A cartoon officer eating a donut in his patrol car becomes funny because the audience already knows the stereotype. Movies, sitcoms, cartoons, sketch comedy, and stand-up all help to compress a real habit into a simple joke. The problem is that pop culture rarely preserves the boring, practical reasons behind a habit. It keeps the image and throws away the context. The donut shop at the 3 in the morning becomes cops love donuts. The coffee stop becomes laziness. The quick snack becomes a joke about weight. The full system behind night work disappears. That is how stereotypes usually work. They take something partly real, strip away the reasons, and repeat the image until the image feels like the whole truth. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy this deep dive into the culture behind the food we eat, subscribe for more stories like this, and I'll see you in the next one.